Hi, my name is K.Johnson. I'm a third grade teacher in Los Angeles County. My capstone is in curriculum development and social studies about how settlers came to California. This year, 2020, is a year for social studies. We have a presidential election and we have seen a cultural shift overnight. However, students tend to find social studies boring and irrelevant. Learning tends to be teacher-centered with note-taking at its core. This century, high-stakes testing, the SBAC, has marginalized the amount of instructional minutes for social studies, cutting over half the minutes in disadvantaged communities. My goal is to create engaging activities to spark students' motivation for future participation in our democracy. The goal of the History Social Science Framework is for students to generate questions, conduct research, and support and build arguments to help their local communities. However, the standards have not been updated since 1998. If there is no update, social studies can literally be a thing of the past. For my intended classroom is a third grade class of 26 students. 6 are English learners, 2 are in resource, and 2 students in RTI. I have a class of diverse learners. Over half of my students are below the 30th percentile in reading, and a third of my students are above the 60th percentile in reading. As you can see below, some of my students' families may be in poverty and have experienced a lot of trauma. When researching, theorists tend to lean towards a social constructivist approach. This is because our democracy is socially constructed. We also need to understand each other's perspectives and collaborate with each other to form a group consensus about how to create a better world. Jerome Bruner stressed the importance of metacognition through discovery learning. He's different from Piaget because Piaget came from an individualistic approach. Lev Vygotsky stressed that there is an interconnectedness to language development and the thinking process. And lastly, Dewey stressed the importance of bringing diverse perspectives together to form a group consensus. All 3 theorists focused on collaboration with peers, how our environment plays a key role, and forming a group consensus to improve society. This unit uses a multicultural approach in which all perspectives are expressed. Students' traditions and values are also validated. Regardless of race, students need to develop awareness of different groups so they create tolerance towards others. It's important for students, especially English learners, to have frequent opportunities to use language in the classroom. Our class will follow our school's goals of reading closely and also citing text to support our arguments. We will focus on designing presentations for students to practice their oral skills. Controversial issues will also be addressed for students to explore their convictions and to create self-identity, be open to possible change, and provides a sense of urgency to vote. Throughout the unit, students will be making decisions and evaluating the best democratic practices. Lastly, we will be integrating a lot of technology to help students have access to text and assignments through differentiation. To support English learners, there will be frequent opportunities to use language, a vocabulary word wall, modified text, sentence stems and graphic organizers, visuals, and multiple forms of assessment in which students can speak orally. These support systems will be for students with special needs as well, and will include shorting activities and posted directions. The unit is for third grade social studies. It's a 2-week unit that has 4 lessons. The essential question is, why did people come to California? The objectives explore how settlers traveled to California, how they cooperated or conflicted with Native Americans, and how they established cultural and religious traditions. The outcome of this unit is that students will collaborate with each other, use their creative skills, and make informed decisions. In Lesson 1, students will evaluate if we should celebrate European explorers or not. Students will then analyze if explorers cooperated or had conflict with Native Americans. To pre-assess their knowledge, we will use a KWL chart. After students read, they will separate their ideas in a T-chart. Some of my students have a lot of energy, so to get them moving around, they will stand up and pick a side if we should celebrate European explorers or not. After students present their ideas and rethink their argument, they will then justify their claim. When students are done, then they will do the comparing maps activity. Lesson 2 is about the gold rush and why settlers came to California. Students will explain what types of transportation settlers used to come here. We will read about this in our TCI textbook and a speech from President Polk. Students will create an advertisement for settlers to buy a ticket to the gold rush using their mode of transportation. For a student to get a sense of the hardship and difficulty that minority groups faced, they will make choices in the gold rush simulation game I created. They will talk about their experiences in the Google form. For Lesson 3, the learning goal is how do settlers establish cultural traditions. It explains how settlers faced hardship and were forced into restricted housing. This is how Chinatown was formed. We will read a primary source about a young man's experience of this. We will also read how Los Angeles is deeply rooted in a Latinx culture. Students will discuss why we need to keep historic buildings like these. We will go on a virtual field trip using Google Earth, and they will complete a postcard, writing a letter of their experience, and put pictures. Lesson 4, the learning objective is students will describe how to become a U.S. citizen. Students will read a story about a family that lived on Angel Island, and students will come up with a list of eligible requirements to become a citizen. In the summative assessment, students will interview an older person that immigrated from another country and share their experience. In reflection, social studies is highly needed. We need decision makers. We need students who can build and support arguments. The social constructivist theory enables students to use language, to understand concepts in their own way, to give students flexibility. There's less stress in getting the correct answer. It's holistic learning. Students learn to socialize, to cooperate, to empathize, to understand people's different points of view. It's acquiring skills, not just accumulating knowledge. They understand what problems their communities face and create solutions to help fix our democracy and help build a better world.